Welcome to RPG ABC. Today we are going to be looking at how to play the quest calendar that I'll be starting tomorrow, I believe. This is the 2023 quest calendar, The Voidspark Chronicles by Sundial Games. I'm so excited to start this. And it's a solo RPG that you play every day. Every day, a new page will have new story information, something for you to do, and then you play that day. And then the next day, you come back, you resolve a few things, and you play that day, and so on and so forth for the entire year. It's a slow burn RPG that I think is going to be really fun. So, I'm here taking a look at the rules so we can enter into our first day fully prepared. So, here are the rules for Quest Calendar, The Voidspark Chronicles. And we are going to scroll down. So, first we will have to be selecting one of these 6 heroes, and I will be selecting this small guy here. Kind of goblin-y. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I haven't looked at any stats or anything. I just saw that picture and was like, yeah, I'm going to pick that guy. My second pick was going to be this scientist looking guy, but I like the idea of the tiny goblin guy, So in these quest calendars, you do have the choice of playing single player or multiplayer. They are designed for single player, and that's how we are going to be playing it. So I'll just keep moving from there. I mean, multiple players can play a single day, but you don't interact with each other. So it's like playing multiple solo games. It's a little, whatever. The single player is where it's at. So character stats, kind of what we expect here. Strength, dexterity, constitution, intellect, wisdom, and charisma. Those will be used for various roles. We also need to keep in mind our health, our defense, our attack, and our damage. Our health is clearly how much damage we can take before we die. Our defense is how hard we're going to be to attack. Our attack is going to be added to a hit roll, so it's a +2 hit this much. And then our damage will be our damage roll, how much damage do we deal to them. Heroes have various abilities, some skills that give you bonuses to specific roles, others are used in combat. There's this virtue tracker thing. It starts at 0. Every hero will start at 0, and then it will go up and down depending on choices that you make, apparently. I'm really excited to see how that will interact with our choices in the future and how that'll interact with the game overall. This is a quick rundown of the dice. If you don't know how to roll dice, here it is. I mean, they list all the types of dice here, and then it tells you how to read a D100. The only thing that shocked me is the 00 and 0 equals 100, not 0. So the lowest you can theoretically roll is a 1, and, normally on with those two dice, the highest you can go is 90 on one and 9 on the other, making 99. This will let you hit 100 if you go double O's O. So that was interesting. So here it's talking about dice rolls, how you will have to roll, say, an intellect check. Maybe your intellect is 2, so you roll your d20 and add the d20 result to your stat, and that is your full amount that you rolled. So those are pretty much standard things as far as RPGs go. This choices here, this is where it really starts diving into how the solo RPG experience works. So each day you have a couple of possible options for how you deal with any situation. If you are meant to choose one option, you will see options listed alphabetically, such as A, B, C. If you are meant to do each, they will be listed numerically, such as 1, 2, 3. So I think that's very interesting that when you have a choice in what you do, it's ABC, and when you are supposed to do them in order, it's 1, 2, 3. It makes a lot of sense that way, and it might lead into certain situations where I like this bottom example here, where it's like 1, you do an action, 2A or 2B, you choose 2A or 2B. So you have to do that one first, and then you can get into 2A and 2B and choose one of those. So that's really where your choices are going to be. Resolving the events of the day. The resolution for the events of a given day will be on the back of the page of the previous day. So you can't throw away, you're done with January 1st. You can't throw that away. You got to hold on to it. Although I think that one's an exception. You can't throw that one away. You got to wait until January 2nd to see how you resolve January 2nd days. So it's very interesting in the fact that you might see the result before you see your options. But I did take a quick look at a couple pages, and the text is small enough and not flashy enough where I don't think you're really going to see the result unless you're looking for it. But I just found that that was an interesting way to do it. Here on their example, if on Wednesday, February 2nd, 2023, you are asked to roll an investigation check, you'll find out the results of that roll on the back of Tuesday, February 1st. So it's the back of the previous day, not the back of that day. So that's very interesting. Abilities and reminders. So many abilities can be used outside of combat. Each day will give reminders for abilities that you can use. If you feel you should be able to use an ability, but there is no reminder, use your best judgment. So this is part of the thing with solo RPGs, is the fact that there's no one telling you yes and no on everything. It's you're entrusted to make your best judgment. If the game will tell you, hey, you might have this type of ability, it might help here, and you may have that type of ability, you might not, depending on what character you play, but there will be certain situations where you're like, you know what, I feel like I can use this ability for this check, but it's not reminding me of that. Use your best judgment, Per rest. So there will be some things that are per rest, and we will get to rest later on. And basically that just means you can use it, and then you have to wait for a rest. And the calendar will tell you when you get a rest. So it might take a while. And then there's per page, which is just basically per calendar day you can use this ability. Those seem very powerful to me. That means you can use it multiple times between rests and whatnot. So that's very fascinating to me. I can't wait to see how that works. Sorry. Trait boosters such as Strengthener RX effect, a stat per page. So this would be per page. It does say a strength for the page. So as long as that reminder there is there the whole time, I don't think it'll be that hard to keep track of. Surges and charges. So some characters have abilities that use a limited resource pool of surges or charges, depending on the hero. And they talk about previous years. So here you can see you have 4 charges you can use to activate mystic abilities, regain all used surges on a rest. So again, that's per rest. We don't know how long we'll have until our next rest. So, you might want to hold on to some of those surges for an emergency. With this example here, 1 surge, you can gain 2 defense bonus for the page. So any combat on that page, you'll gain +2 defense, which is pretty good, I think. I would kill for that in like D&D and stuff. And then also regenerate, use 1 surge, restore 1d6 health. That's pretty handy. Both those are going to be very much like I want to save these for the right moments. Especially the healing surge, that just seems bonkers to me. Now here we go, we get into combat here, which will make the healing and defense talk a lot, easier to understand. In Quest Calendar, you get a set number of rounds to fight, and in each round, you will roll to hit and then roll damage if you do hit. So here, I found this little block of text here, both these blocks of text, to be very informative. How enemy 1 has 13 defense, 5 health, 11 attack, and 2 or 1 damage. So if your attack roll is more than 13, you hit. If it was less, you missed. If you hit and your damage roll is 5 or more, the enemy dies. So it has 5 health. It's the same as D&D here, where meets it, beats it. So you roll a 13 and their defense is 13, you still hit. So if you missed or you did not kill the enemy, they hurt you. And they just have flat attack numbers. So if your defense is 10 or less, you take 2 damage. And if your defense is 11 or more, meets it, beats it, you take 1 damage. So you're taking damage kind of regardless unless you just kill them first time. And that might cause you to be a little concerned, but it's a way to progress, you know? They can't have you just constantly not taking damage because, oh, I rolled below that number. Sure, I did. You know, so yeah, I think that's an interesting way to handle this. When fighting against a single enemy over multiple rounds, when you hit and do enough damage, the text will instead say the enemy is stunned instead of the enemy dies. So it can't damage you on that round, which is important because if it's just one enemy over multiple rounds, they don't want you to kill the enemy early and then it's like, well, there were 3 more rounds in that combat, I guess nothing happens. It keeps the combat interesting throughout all rounds. So I think that's interesting. Healing in combat, that's an important one. During combat, a med kit item can only be used at the beginning or end of the page, not in the middle of combat rounds. So looking to heal in the middle of combat is not going to be easy. A med kit can't do it. It has to be at the beginning or the end of the page. So you might, get to the next page and you see that there's combat. Oh, let me use a med kit real quick, 2d4 to heal up before this combat starts. You can, though, use any abilities that you might have when you're healing. Just they're going to be limited on how they're used. So this is use one surge, restore d6 health. So if you have a surge, you can use that. And it actually gets explained a little bit further down below. The mode we'll be playing in, you'll be able to use that at the end of your combat turn in the round. Doubling damage. If you have an ability that allows you to double your damage, roll twice, roll again, and add the results to your first roll. So it says roll twice, and then it's explaining you roll again and then add the results. So, a damage with a modifier. Here we have you roll what the damage is, you add the modifier, and that equals the total. And here we have whenever you roll a 19 or 20 on an attack, roll the damage, double the damage roll. So here they showed that they rolled the damage twice. 2d6, so they rolled 2d6, and then they added the modifier. If you are familiar with D&D's crit rules, it's very similar to that. Combat difficulty, here we go. We are going to be playing in standard mode. You roll the dice for one entire round at a time before deciding where to use abilities to modify the results for that round. Then proceed to the next round. So you roll your attack and damage for the round, see the result for the round, then decide to use an ability. And I like this example here. Consider the ability Smite. Once per page, add a d4 to a damage roll. So you roll your attack and you roll your damage, then you can decide to use your Smite. Like if you didn't do enough damage to kill the enemy and you think, oh man, if I could just Smite, add that 1d4, I can probably get the KO. Then you can choose to use the ability. Then you roll the dice and hopefully you get that KO. If not, then you used your ability and you didn't get the KO, and that's just terrible. But I like that idea of it, of like, okay, I can roll this, I can roll that, and then in reaction to what I rolled, now I can use my abilities. Easy mode, you roll for all rounds and then you choose which rounds you want to use abilities. I find that very clunky. So I'm not going to do that, and I didn't even read hard mode. But let's look at this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 real quick. So you roll to attack, see if your attack hits. Then decide to boost the attack, then roll damage, then decide to boost the damage. It breaks it up into more steps, which is not necessarily a bad thing if that's the way your brain works, but I think I'm just going to go with standard mode. That's the mode that it was probably designed for, so that's the mode I'm going to stick with. Conditions and afflictions. Now, these are all very interesting, but they're all very specific. So I'm not going to go into too much detail with these. Infected is a condition, and when a page is, making you roll for infected, you'll roll a d20, add your constitution. If it's 10 or less, you reduce your health by 1. If it's 11 or more, you take no damage, but are still infected and must roll again for the next page. So you become infected, you roll a constitution check after every round, and if it's 10 or less, you take the damage. 11 or more, you do not take damage. So as long as you have if you have a +0 in constitution, it's a 50-50 shot, basically. You do have ways to remove it, such as antidote. That's an item you could use and remove it, or just by resting. Malfunction is another one. When asked to roll for one of your hero's traits, make the roll twice and take the lesser result among the two rolls. It's like D&D's disadvantage. So, not bad. This condition is removed during a rest, or if you consume a repair kit. That's a repair kit. Becoming malfunctioned while you're already malfunctioned have no effect. Yeah, these conditions do not stack. So that's good to know. Frightened. Frightened is against your wisdom score. And frightened, I believe every encounter where you can become frightened tells you what frightened will do with that certain encounter. It's not an overall this is what happens type of thing. Restrained is a d20 roll against with your dexterity to be restrained. If you're not restrained, you do this. If it was less, you missed. If your dexterity roll is less than the target number, you are restrained for that round. You are then unable to make an attack or damage roll for that round. This effect will only last for a single round where you become restrained. So that might be punishing. Hopefully it's only just you are restrained at the beginning, and if you break free, you're fine, or it's just you miss one round. If it's continuous, that's going to be, it looks like it's continuous. So that might be a little scary. You might get just bad luck rolled into death because you cannot roll your dexterity high enough, and then just you can't attack, you take all this damage, and you're done, So that one is one to worry about. Weakened is a d20 plus strength check. And weaken, if your strength roll is less than the target number, you are weakened for that round. If you take damage that round, the damage will be doubled. This effect will only last for a single round where you become weakened. So that's very similar, but at least it's not preventing us from doing things. It's just dealing us more damage. Confusion is a d20 plus intellect. If your intellect roll is at or is less than the target number, you are confused for that round. You must then re-roll your damage and take the result if it is smaller. So with confused, you have disadvantage on your damage rolls, which is interesting. It is interesting here. It says if your intellect roll is at or is less than target number, where if we look at weakened, it's if your strength roll is less than the target number. I'm wondering if that is a mistake, if it's not at or less, if it's just less, because meets it beats it is a very simple rule to remember. So, I don't know, that seems interesting. But yeah, disadvantage on damage. That's what that one was. And then we have pickpocket. Throughout the calendar, there are some days where you can steal from a non-enemy character. Reminders for pickpocket ability are noted with this icon. These icons may not always be easy to find as they will be hidden on the page. Keep an eye out for them. That's interesting. That is requiring the player, not the character, to find, to kind of look out, keep their eyes out for their target, that little pickpocket icon. So you are looking for your target in the page. I find that very interesting. I don't know if I'm going to be good enough at finding those pickpocket encounters to actually do it enough, but I kind of hope I am. Like, that sounds so much fun, but I'll probably miss out on a ton of them, sadly. So if you spot this icon, roll a d4 to gain that much in credits. A result of 4, you will lose 1 virtue point. So if you take too much gold, or credits, you will lose a virtue point. It makes sense. I'm surprised it's not just if you choose to make this roll, you lose one sort of thing. But yeah, you can choose not to receive the 4 credits so you don't lose virtue. So that's interesting. It gives you the choice, at least. No abilities, equipment, inventory item, or other roll bonus can affect the pickpocket roll. The exception is the smuggler's pickpocket ability. This improves the amount of credits you can receive. Oh, okay. So this would change it. If your character has the pickpocket ability, it just changes to a d6, and on a 6, you lose 1 virtue. So a smuggler with the pickpocket ability is more virtuous stealing 5 gold than a regular person stealing 4 gold. Or credits. I love that. That's funny. Extra attack and damage. If you have an ability that allows you to make an extra attack and damage, it allows you to repeat the round's attack and roll before your hero takes any damage. If your second attack hits, add the extra damage to any damage you may have done in the first round. Basically, yeah. The calendar only tracks per round. So if you have anything that lets you do an extra attack and damage, you will just want to add that to the round rather than putting it in a different box, and then it gets confusing and all that. So you just want to add that up before you do it. So best to just roll them at the same time. If you have 2 attacks per round, you roll your 2 attacks. Oh, they both hit. Let me roll the damage for both, and you're good to go. Dealing with death. Okay, now this is the part that interests me the most. How they were going to deal with this, or was there not going to be much stakes? There are stakes. You can die. So, sometimes the dice can be unforgiving with the fate of your hero. It is unlikely that is likely that at some point along your journey, your hero's health gets reduced to 0. The adventure must go on. You can be resurrected via a clone, but cloning comes at a price. Bring your current health to half of your max value, round it up, then roll a d4. A result of 1, you lose credits. Half your credits. Holy cow, that could be a lot. If you have no credits, you roll again. Result of 2, you suffer a physical injury. You roll a d10, and then based off that, you will have something reduced, and you won't be able to restore that until you use an item to heal or you rest. So that's more of a temporary situation, but it's still pretty devastating. Result of 3, your body was looted while you were being cloned. Sacrifice one of your equipment items. If you do not have one, roll the d4 again. So you could just lose one of your hard to find equipment items. That's crazy. Just gone. And the rest of the game is going to be more difficult. And result 4, a new experimental cloning process works well. You are cloned successfully, but it was done in haste and you aren't feeling well. Use per rest abilities as used, or mark them all as used until your next rest. So you just lose out on all your special abilities. So you lose out on all that special stuff. That would suck. And that, of course, would be restored on your next rest. If you wish for a more difficult game, you can choose a new hero if you die and roll a result of 4. If you roll a result of 4 on the d4, choose a new hero at the same level, but without the equipment of your previous hero had accumulated. That's interesting. I might play like that. I don't think so, though. Just because I don't want to lose my equipment, you know? Like, I fought really hard for that. Like, can you just imagine a DM taking away a magic item? Like, terrible. So, we'll see. Rests. So here we finally have what rests will do, and it's exactly as you expect. So there will be designated days when your character will get to rest and recover from their journey. On these days, restore your HP to full, regain all expended uses of abilities, regain all charges, spell, chi, and surge points, remove the infected condition, the malfunction condition, change your equipment if you desire. You can't have 2 of the same item types, so you can't have like 2 things on your hand. Ring and glove is their example, equipped at the same time. Remove a single negative modifier caused from a previous death. If you have a physical injury against both strength and attack, you pick one to restore. If you died twice and got a physical injury to strength both time, fully restore your strength. So that's interesting. That you can, it's like one per stat or whatever. So if you have 2 injuries to your strength, it fully restores off one rest. So that's interesting. Might make it to where you kind of hope to be injured in a particular way if you die. Leveling up gets you a lot of things. I have the character book, so I will just be following those instructions. It looks like you also have 2 points to allocate however you choose to your hero's traits: strength, dexterity, constitution, intellect, wisdom, and charisma. You can put both into one stat, or you can put one in each stat, sort of business, or put one in one stat, another in another stat, however you want. When you level up, you do not get a rest. That is the important part there, I think, of you don't regain everything, so you might be down surges and not able to use a certain ability that you just got, or even when you increase your maximum HP, you don't fully heal, you only gain however much total HP you gain. So, as the example says, let's say your health max is 20 and you've taken 10 damage, so you have 10 health. If you level up and gain 4 health for your new level, you will also, so your new max health will be 24. You'll also gain those 4 in hit points, so you'll be at 14 hit points. You've still taken 10 damage. So here it says if you have the companion hero book, turn the page to the hero's next level. To see the additional abilities you have acquired, make sure to copy over your current stats, injuries, credits, trait adjustments, per rest uses, and all that stuff. Okay, so sometimes you will run into shops. You may sell items back to the shop only if they are selling that same item. You must sell it for the same price the current shop sells it for. If you move on from the shop but regret that you did not purchase something, you must wait to make purchases until another day when you visit another shop. So when you run to these shops, they're going to be rare. You got to make sure you get what you want and you move on. Because if you don't buy what you want, you lose out completely. Debt. This is another interesting thing that I think comes with solo play. It's the fact that you might run into situations where you do not have enough money to do something that you have to do to progress. You can go into debt. And basically what happens is you take a -2 credit penalty if you go into debt. So I like the example here. Starting credits 3, you have to pay 5. So you would end up with -2, but then you take that debt penalty, so you're at -4. So even in sci-fi universe, futuristic stuff, we still got to deal with credit card debt. Terrible. Equipment. Here's a nice little diagram of equipment, and you can place your equipment how you want. I saw there's stickers that you get to use. I'm so excited about stickers. Meal rations and traveling. This is the most interesting part. You've got to eat. You have to eat. If you ever need to consume 1 or more meal rations and do not have enough, reduce your health by 1 for each ration you do not have. So certain times you'll have to eat a certain amount, and if you don't have it, you get dealt damage instead. So meal rations are going to be very important. Sunday lottery. This sounds like a lot of fun. Every Sunday you get to play it in the lottery. You roll a d6 and you see what you get. On a 1, you lose 2 credits. On a 2, you lose 1 credit. On a 3, you gain 1 credit. On a 4, you gain 2. On a 5, you gain 3. And on a 6, you gain 4. So it's not too punishing. You are actually more likely to gain money than lose money in this lottery, which is way different than real life, but you know how it is. Dogfight. This is so interesting, and we are nearing the end of this rule book. So, sorry this has been taking so long. But dogfighting is very similar to the way combat works from the earlier section here. However, you roll D100s to modify your aim, your evasion, your shield will be subtracted from the damage that you take. so it's a nice way to keep damage off of you. You know, if you're not really working out that well right now. Now, it is, you roll D100, so I'm wondering if there will be example, like this example only uses 60, 50, 60 and 50 for the example numbers, targets. I'm wondering if there will be other examples or other, in the actual calendar, if there will be other combats, dogfight combats, where the numbers are a little bit, more specific, because not to get too technical here, if they're all in increments of 10, then really what you're doing is rolling a d10. The other side of that percentage dice doesn't matter. So I'm interested to see how they handle this in the future. But, you can roll to aim, and if you hit, so if you roll to aim and you get your shot hits, you take no damage. Otherwise, you missed. If your evasion roll is less than 50, your ship takes 3 damage minus your shield value. And if your evasion is 50 or more, your ship takes 1 damage minus your shield value. So I'm wondering how that will play in, if it's only your shield is only for one whole combat, or if it's per round. Because you could theoretically get to a point where your shield's just absorbing all these hits, I guess. It would be very interesting. I don't think this explains it well enough for me. You subtract your shield value from the damage. For example, if you're told you take 3 damage and your shield value is 1, you will take 2 damage. Now this does go into ship damage, and basically when you take damage, you will then roll a d6 to determine what section is taking damage. Each of these have an integrity value that starts at 3. This can change with any upgrades, crew, and hero abilities you may have. There's the D6 to, put it wherever. Repairing your ship, there's an item to help you repair. And then crew, you can hire crew. So at certain points through the year, you will be able to hire crew members. They will cost credits, and then you assign them to a particular space. Now, the rule book does state that you cannot change where they are assigned later on. So wherever you pick, that's where they're stuck. So hopefully you pick a good spot for them the first time around. Once integrity of that compartment is reduced to 0, the crew member dies and is removed from the ship. Don't let your crew die. Ship upgrades, I think these are pretty self-explanatory. However, you can also equip a ship upgrade if you restore your integrity of a destroyed compartment, one with an integrity of 0. You also resell your ship upgrades at full price back to another shop that also sells ship upgrades. So, pretty self-explanatory there, I think. And we are done. We are done. We went through the entire rule book. I hope you guys are ready for your adventure, or at least ready to join me on my adventure. I'm really excited about this. This will be my first solo RPG, and I'm very intrigued by the every day there's a new thing to do aspect. Can't wait to get started. It's not January 1st yet, so I can't get started. So, yeah. Let's do this. Can't wait. Hope you guys are ready to join me. And thank you so much for watching. I hope this was informative at the very least. Maybe you buy your own calendar and play through it, or just join me with my calendar and we'll play through that. So anyways, until next time, keep rolling.